Good afternoon and welcome to the MARIMACA Copper Investor Presentation. Throughout the recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives in the meeting itself. However, the company can review all the questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Hayden Locke. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hello and welcome everyone to our conference call to discuss the recent and exciting drill results at our Pampa Medina project. Sergio is going to give an overview of the geological model and how our thinking of this project has evolved based on the results that we're seeing from various geological work streams. We're excited at the potential for Pampa Medina and the surrounding Sierra de Medina project area. We've consolidated the majority of this area now and have access to various historical exploration databases. For the first time, this is being looked at as a single manto system rather than several discrete smaller scale opportunities, and this has driven our thinking. What if these small surface deposits are actually genetically linked and therefore part of a much larger, significant new district? The area is prospective for both oxides, which are complementary to our mod, for which the DFS is underway and nearing completion, but also a much larger, we believe, sulfide opportunity, which appears to have both significant scale and grade. And with that, I'll hand over to our VP Exploration, Mr. Sergio Rivera, to take us through his presentation.
So, hello everyone. Let me start with this slide showing the location of the Sierra de Medina property block. This map shows also all the block that we own at MARIMACA and surrounding. The MARIMACA is from Medina is approx 28 kilometers. Medina to the east. And other thing that you can see in this map is that most of the Medina area is in the eastern part of the coastal cordillera. Elevations are not so high. The minimum elevation of Medina is close to 1,300 meters, roughly. And we have there a total of more than 14,500 hectares of concession that protects an area which is roughly 15 kilometers by 20 kilometers long. Starting with the background on the geological setting first, this is a map from Serna-Humin. And if we follow an approximate section from west to the east, the western part in the Mejillones Peninsula is outcrops of metamorphics, upper Paleozoic to Triassic in age. And then if we move to the east, most of the coastal cordillera is composed by Jurassic rocks, both volcanics, the La Negra Formation, and intrusions. And then you can see here the most relevant fracture fault, which is the Atacama Fault Zone. And then moving to the east is the eastern border of the coastal cordillera with outcrops of the same Jurassic intrusions and volcanics. And then the Pampas or the flat basin area, in which most of the area is covered by unconsolidated sediments, gravels and sands. And toward the east, the rocks are more young, basically Cretaceous and tertiary volcanics. One important thing here is that most of the mineralized rocks that I will refer in this webinar are not really exposed at surface, at least in most of this map. The oldest rock, the sediments are exposed in the Rencoret area, here roughly south of what the symbol shows the location of the Cachorro project right now. But in the rest of the area, except some intrusions, there is no outcrops of Jurassic sediments or Triassic sediments, or even the basement that we know that is important and relevant for the controls of the mineralization. With reference to the metallogenic setting, the Atacama Fault divides the area in two domains, basically. The western domain consists the mineralization included there is volcanic hosted mantos, the typical that are very well described by many papers. The occurrences of copper in volcanic rocks. We call the mantle type hosted by volcanic andesitic volcanic sequences. Michilla and the Ivan mines are one of the examples, but we have many others, like Comahue, recently open mine, Mantos de la Luna, Buena Esperanza, etc., etc. But also, MARIMACA is an IOCG deposit. And the description that we have on Sierra de Cama mentioned that the mineralization is also of IOCG affiliation. So in the western domain, there's this volcanic hosted and IOCG deposits hosted by Jurassic rocks. But in the eastern domain is quite different. There is some copper mantos hosted in volcanics too, like the Elenita mine, which is north of our mining block here. The Madrugador mine, which is in our concessions right now, and there is another mine called Pias, which is also in our property. And this is the typical volcanic hosted mantos. But there is other important deposits like Mantos Blancos and the recently discovered Cachorro, in which the mineralization is also refers at manto type of a strat-bound copper mineralization, but hosted by pyroclastic rocks in the case of Mantos Blancos, and by intrusions, Triassic rocks and basement rocks in the case of Cachorro. In our case, in the Sierra Medina, the mineralization is basically hosted by sediments, Jurassic and Triassic sediments, as I will show you in the next slide. This is the column that represent the stratigraphic column of the units that host the mineralization in Medina area. This photo, the left, shows the few outcrops that we have in the area, because most of the area is covered by gravels. But there is some few outcrops, and this case is a photo of the sediments as exposed to the surface. Consists mostly in intervening sandstone and shales mineralized. And you can see that list as well. The mineralized column, as described from the results of drilling, consists in a basement of rhyolites that describe the chameleon unit in regional terms, and then a sequence of sediments that reaches in 200 to 300 meters in thickness. The lower part is consists in clastic sediment mostly, sandstone and conglomerates. Then at the middle part is in a tuff that we use as a key horizon, a key strata that we call the Medina tuff. And then the upper part consists basically in shales and sandstones. And the top of the column is the sequence of volcanic rocks of Laneira Formation. And as I'm showing you in this column, the mineralization that we have at Medina is a manto type, and is hosted by all the types of sediments that we have in these 200 or 300 meters. Is hosted in the lower part of clastic sediments, part in the tuff, and also in the upper levels. But if we follow the sequence of rocks to the top of the sequence, there is also mineralization in the volcanics, like I mentioned of the case of Madrugador, for example. So in the case of Medina, we have all the column of Mesozoic rocks from sediments, Jurassic sediments, Triassic, Upper Triassic, Lower Jurassic, Middle Jurassic sediments, with hosting the mineralization, but also there is same type of mineralization hosted in the volcanic rocks on the top. This map here shows the main structures. I mentioned the Atacama Fault, but there is another main fault which is related to the Atacama Fault system called Sierra Valenzuela Fault. And I also point here with this arrow the Ancla Fault, which is relevant when we'll go through the more details about the geology and of this part of the southeast part of the block of concessions that correspond to the area in which we have run all the exploration right now. This is the slide showing the details of rock types. We're giving you a more clear idea of what are the type of rocks and textures of rock, mainly the type of rock that host the mineralization. And the sites on top of the typical vesicular andesites, reddish, stained by hematite mostly. The upper sediments are interbedded sandstone and shales. This is in the middle part is the rhyolite tuff or the Medina tuff. The part of the units that are below the Medina tuff, which is the conglomerate and sandstone, and then the rocks of the basement. We have some evidences of fossils in the sediments, and most of the occurrences that we have are probably ammonitis types. In reference to the mineralization, most of the mineralization we have, as I mentioned, looks to be controlled by stratigraphic levels, especially by the sandstone and shales in the upper part of sediments, and by the sandstone and shales also, but also by conglomerates in the base of the sequence of the Pampa Medina unit, basically. The photos here shows examples of how looks the mineralization of the oxide in the oxide mantos with atacamite and chrysocolla mostly, and in the lower parts of the sequence of the upper sequence, there is part of the mineralization that becomes to be oxidized or mixed with copper oxide and chalcocite mostly. And in the bottom of the sequence, the mineralization is primary sulfides, basically bornite, chalcopyrite. The high-grade sections that we have are hosted by conglomerates and sandstone. We started the exploration in the area, thinking in an exploration model first. So we analyze all the historic information of the area, and we produce a district scale section, a more than 6 kilometer section, that goes from the Pampa Medina body, which is absolutely covered by gravels, and up to the Madrugador area to the west. And we make an interpretation of this section using all the information we have to produce a exploration model to explore the rest of the property. In the future, in the next slide, we will obviously provide no information about the Antofagasta mineral property, which is right here. And we obviously don't explore. This is the model section that we use for establish the exploration plan in the area, and we think that the column that I just present you is repeated in the area, consisted in the volcanics here presented in green, the sediments in blue, and the basement in gray color. We assume and interpret using some information, some drilling historic drilling information that part of the distribution of the sediments must be controlled by a series of block faults, like the faults represented here. And we checked then this interpretation using geophysics. We ran a AMT to measure resistivity first, but also we ran a very detailed magnetics on covering all the area. And the resistivity shows very well presented the location of the mineralization and the sediment units, as you can see here. This is the Pampa body on the top, and then the area of the Pampa as represented by a very low anomaly in resistivity that you can follow and continue toward the west. And we compare this information with the magnetics. The high magnetics correspond to the volcanics mostly, and then the lower magnetics to the sediments. And some other high magnetics are probably correspond to intrusions. But the fault boundary of certain blocks is very well shown in these geophysical sections, as well as expected from the original geologic interpretation. And remember that the geological interpretation was previously to this run to previously all this geophysics. So with the confirmation of our model, structure model, and stratigraphic model with the geophysics, with just this basis, we followed the program. And the next program was basically the exploration drilling program that we start first with scout drilling, and then we continue with a step out drilling program. This is how the area looks like. If you see, it's a quite flat area, basically no outcrops, and this is some nitrate office in the background. And we shows you just for location purposes where is the location of hole number, the diamond hole number 1, and then the RC hole number 1 that are pretty consistent in this place. And the next slide show the location of the step out holes as we started, and I give you results right now. As the section is 500 meters south of the location of hole number 1. So up to the moment, with the results of the progressing step out, we have results from the section 40,800, which is this one, in which hole 13 is located, and anticipate part of results of the section 41,300, in which hole 1 is, and the other holes are RC holes from the scouting program. This is a map that shows the location of the line 41,300 with the first holes that we drilled in the scout program. Hole number 1 is the discovery hole that we consider basically the discovery hole of this program. This is the first deep hole that has been drilled in the area, and there is also an additional holes that for operational reasons can reach the expected depth, the holes number 5 and 4. But anyway, they start to hit mineralization, especially the upper mantle zone in these 2 holes. This is the slide shows the summary of the relevance of hole number 1, the discovery hole. The discovery hole number 1, one of the main thing is that obviously the intercept of mineralization, the 400 meters of 0.5%, including the 102 meters of plus than 1%. And but basically checks the stratigraphy from the volcanic units through the sediments, and then the tuff, Medina tuff, and to the lower sediments. And that's basically one of the important results of hole number 1 that were then checked by the twin hole diamond drill hole number 1 that also repeat the intercept from sediments and the tuff and the lower sediment, mineralized lower sediments for more than 422 meters of 0.5%, including the 20 meters of 2% in the upper zone of the mantle. Then in the middle zone, 32 meters of 1%, and an additional intercept at the bottom of 72 meters of 0.7, including 24 meters of 1.6%. And the rocks looks like this. The core intercepts of mineralized volcanics, some remnants of mineralized volcanics on the top. As I mentioned, we have copper mineralization in the volcanics as well, but not the quality, the grade, and the extension that we reach in the sediments. This picture show also how looks the mineralization in the upper zone, in the upper sediments, in the interbedded sandstones and shales, and how looks the mineralization in the conglomerates. In this case, is coarse bornite, high grade to medium grade bornite hosted by conglomerates. This section shows the summary of interpretation of what we have with the 3 holes in the section 41-300, and shows the results of the 3 holes that I mentioned, including the hole number 1, and the interpretation created from the results of the holes in terms that the mineralization is controlled by the upper contact between the volcanic and the sediments, but extending through the unit of the tuff and even extending down up to what could be the lower limit of the mantle. And what is the total thickness of the mineralization is the close to 1% mineralization is always in the range of 150 up to 200 meters in most of the holes, as I will show you. The step out program, starting with the section 4800 here, that's showing this in this map, and this is the section with the results that we released last week. Included the results of holes number diamond hole 2 and the RC combined diamond drilling holes 12 and the best one, the hole 13. You can note that the holes are separated here by 300 meters, but still we are, as I show you, we progress with holes, an additional holes to the west and to the east, which are 300 meters apart of hole 12 and hole 13. So the total in horizontal dimensions that we check, the extension of the mantles up to now is more than 1,000 meters. And this section shows the sequence of rocks again, volcanics on the top, sediments, the tuff, and the lower sediments, and the maturity of intercepts that we have in hole number 2, in which they have a better intercept of plus the 200 meters. Then the hole number 13, in which the best intercept is more than 200 meters. And if you remember the release, we have this nice intercept of 6 meters of 12% included in a unit of more than 20 meters of 4% copper. In this section, we show also where is the location of the original Pampa oxide body that was discovered by Rye Rock, but that was drilled very shallow. They don't drill it at depth because they think that the mineralization was hosted by volcanics. They refer to the mineralization basically as volcanic hosted. But when we check the holes here, that's the reason why we decided to go deep thinking in the Cachorro model, but then we realized that our mineralization was hosted in sediment. We changed our mind to sediment-hosted deposit. This is a north-south section showing again the main rock type, volcanics and sediments, and will be the extension of the mantos that are well developed and drilled in the actual section 800 to the section 300, and you can see here the nature of the intercepts and the extension of the mantle at depth. Now we will go through a couple of examples of the nature of the high-grade intercepts that we have in the recent holes. This is the best intercept of hole 12, showing in this diagram the nature of the rock types, the mineralization, the variation of the grades, and the different cutoff grade, average grades. And in the case of number 12, this is the best mineralized section with sulfides is more than 68 meters of 1%, hosted by sandstone and shales, mostly by sandstones. And mineralization is chalcocite and bornite in this case, and but continues with chalcopyrite at depth. And at the top of the intercept here is the mineralization is interrupted by dikes, which is this part of the rock types that we have in the project. The sediments are intruded by a series of dikes. But the best interval here is 12 meters of 2% contained in 52 meters of 1.43% copper. And the best intercept of the hole number 13 is this 26 meter 4%. And here, the mineralization is interrupted by the dike also. So we don't know if this was probably continuous in this case. And then a conglomerate that hosts to mostly chalcopyrite mineralization, not at the same level of the grade of the best interval for sure. But the best interval is chalcopyrite bornite and to bornite that looks like the photograph that we show here, which is coarse, very coarse bornite hosted by shales. The rock type here that hosts mineralization at most shales rather than sandstones. This is the section of that shows the mineralization of the section 40,800. But in this case, we also interpret the western extension and eastern extension because we are drilling additional holes 300 meters west of hole number 12 in the case, and another 300 meters west of hole number 13. So in this case, we have a section that is more than 1,200 meters with these new holes. The holes to the hole that we are drilling in the eastern part is intercept the sediments on the top. That means that we have an uplift block, and most of the hole go through basement that shows some nice salvitic alteration and pyrite, but not intercept the mineralization up to now, except the sediments mineralized that intercept a very shallow at the surface, close to the surface. The hole to the west intercept a downdrop block with more volcanics, but immediately in the contact of the volcanic with the sediments, we started to have mineralization. And as we know up to now, we are roughly 640 meters, and we still are in chalcopyrite mineralization in this hole. So this is the case of the section for 4,800, and we are thinking that we still have potential for extended mineralization both west to east, and you will know from our previous slides that we have mineralization from that obviously we are the central part of the body approx, and we still have potential for extend north and south, and in all the area that we are drilling in the step out program that I show you in this map. This is a map showing some important elements that can be used for thinking about what is the potential of extending of the mineralization beyond the limits of the actual sections 40,800 or 41,300. In red here is the area that we decide to run this step out program, which is actually in progress. The plan is to drill here in 300 meters apart sections, roughly 14 deep holes. We are thinking in 60 to 70, 100 meters holes with a total of 10,000 holes. Here, for step out this area, which is roughly 1.5 by 1.3 kilometers area. Up to now, we complete the section 41,800, and we're starting to move with two rigs, to which we add another RC. So we will have three rigs drilling the other sections at 3 meters apart holes to the north and to the south to cover all this area that I mentioned, and I will comment about what will be the potential in next slide. But also it's important to note that because the results of AMT that I just showed you in some sections at the start of this presentation, we are realizing that the AMT has a good proxy of the extension of the mineralized sediments and obviously the mineralized mantle. And we have this grid here, which is roughly 3 kilometers by 3.4 kilometers. And this represents the potential extension of the potential area beyond the limits of the actual step out. And for this AMT grid, this slide here shows the extension of the anomaly, of the AMT anomaly in 3D. Here in the central part is the section 40,800 for reference, and you can see here the holes number 13, or 2 and 12, and the intercepts that are really shows a really good correlation with the AMT, with values lower than 300 ohms meter and up to lower than 200 ohms meter mostly. But we still have anomalies of this range for all along this 3.4 by 3 kilometers area, showing the what can be the extension, because all these are really open in all directions according to geophysical results. So we will have a really attractive potential obviously in the step out program, then in the envelope around the step out program. But the final question to close to the presentation, what's happened with the rest of the property, and what happened with the idea of the extension of the potential extension of the sediment hosted mineralization, which is described for the first time in Chile, and we presume that it's probably the first time we describe it in the Andes. One of the most remarkable features of the sediment-hosted deposits in other parts of the world is the high grade, of course, of the mantles, but the lateral extension. And we know from all examples that the mineralization can be followed by kilometers as just a function of the extension of the favorable stratigraphy. And in the case of Medina, please take a look on this section here, which is an AMT section. This map shows the extension of the mining property, and the ABC is a more than 16 kilometers long AMT sections that we run for exploration of the rest of the property, starting in the western part from where the Atacama Fault is, through Pias, which is a volcanic hosted prospect, and then goes to the Pampa, and you can see in the eastern part here how looks the Pampa and AMT anomaly. But if you follow this in between Pias and Pampa, there is many other fissures that remains the same style of AMT anomaly of what we see at Pampas. And remember that from the illustrative sections down here, that we can make a correlation between the stratigraphic units and the AMT response. And the volcanics looks high resistivity in blue. The mineralized sediments that probably host the mineralization are low resistivity. And when you follow the section, just taking a consideration of the vertical scale for sure, the upper parts are in blue here represents the remnants of volcanics, because when we go from the area toward the north, it's just subcrops or outcrops of volcanic rocks, but not so much sediments outcropping at surface. But we now from the AMT section, we're thinking that we have really good potential for extending the sediments below the volcanics, and so we really have potential for extending the mineralized sediments for the rest of the property, at least as can prove by this section. So just to conclude the presentation of this webinar, it's necessary to say that geological observation to date confirms that the two main factors of the sediment hosted deposits, say the sediment nature of the host rock, of course, the high grade nature of the intercepts, and the lateral extension that can be assumed from the host rock nature, exist at Medina, as proved from the scale of the step out program to the potential of the AMT grid, and even we can extend to the rest of property looking this type of AMT sections. And so we have all these elements. Observations confirms these elements, that all these factors are present in Medina. So I think that is for you to judge what can be at the end the copper mineralization potential of our property. Thank you so much.
Well, that's great, and thank you very much for your presentation. What I'll do is I'll just bring your cameras up now at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions. You can do so just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review the questions that have been submitted today, I'd like to remind you that the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboards. As you can see, we have received questions both pre-submitted and throughout today's live presentation. And Hayden, if I could hand over to you to read out the questions, that'd be great, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for attending, and Sergio for a great and informative presentation. There are a couple of more strategic related questions which I might take, but I'll focus on a few of the geological questions for you, Sergio, to start with. Are there any other examples of these types of sediment hosted deposits in Chile, and which deposits do you consider to be the best comparators, I guess the best analogues in your mind?
No, there is another examples like this exactly in Chile. No, there is not as far I know. There is most of the manto style mineralization. The largest deposit are like Mantos Blancos or the new discovery Cachorro, or like El Soldado in central Chile, but all these manto type are hosted in volcanic rocks, or except Cachorro that is hosted in what can be basement rocks, Triassic tuffs, and even intrusions and Paleozoic metamorphics, but not exactly what we recognize in the case of Medina. That's mean copper mineralization, particularly very high rich bornite sections. We chose the zonation from bornite to chalcopyrite and pyrite around, hosted in sediments, shale, sandstone conglomerates, in thickness that are more than 150 to 200. Is absolutely new in Chile, and I have no other. We know another type of occurrence like this, and evidently the nature of the mineralization, the most analogous mineralization that come to our mind are the occurrences of the Cooper Schiefer in Europe and obviously the copper belt in Africa. We have very things that look similar to this type of occurrences, but obviously are not exactly the same. But the nature of hosted in sediments and the extension of the mineralization as we know up to right now is similar to what we know about the occurrence and controls of the mineralization at the Cooper Schiefer and the copper belt.
Great. This one, I think there's a couple of questions that I'll combine into one. Have you identified the controls of mineralization, or is there the potential that this could be continuous over a much larger area? What evidence do you have that it could be extending over a larger area? And are there regional structures or changes in geology that you see that could create a natural boundary?
Well, the main problem of the area from the point of view of exploration is obviously that the deposit is hidden. We don't have good outcrops at surface, and so any idea of the potential lateral extension of the mineralization needs geophysical support. And as I show you in the first slides, when I compare our original geological ideal section with the results of the AMT and the results of the magnetics, both magnetics and resistivity lines shows a very good correlation that we prove in the area of Pampa Medina with the information that we have from holes, from drilling and the interpretation that we have. So just using the proxy of the resistivity is that I'm showing in the last slide. I think that we have for sure we have potential for the mineralization in the 3 by 4 kilometers of the same style. And what's happened to the rest, what can be projected to the rest of the property, we need the support of the AMT. And in this case, if the AMT works and shows that correlation as we show in this slide, it means that the high resistivity on top, the blue colors represent the volcanic unit on top, and the low resistivity in red represents sediments that hopefully are hosting mineralization. Then the potential that we have could be extending obviously to the north for various kilometers.
Great. In hole 16, you mentioned chalcopyrite and bornite, and do you see this as a westerly extension of the same mineralized unit?
What?
Hayden, your connection
And
is
what
just
is the east-west
Hayden, your connection is just cutting out ever so slightly. So what I'm going to do
now between holes 13 and 16?
Can you repeat the question, Hayden, please?
Now, without my... Yeah, so you mentioned chalcopyrite and bornite in hole 16. Do you see this as a westerly extension of the same mineralized unit from the announcement? And what is the east-west extension of those mineralized intersections between 13 and 16?
You can go to the... I think I can move the slide. Yes, I can move the slide. This is the slide that shows the holes 15 and 16 that we are drilling right now, and hole 16 that intercepts the already intercepted mineralization that looks interesting, like the 13 one. All these holes are 300 meters apart. So hole 16 is at least 1 kilometer west of, hole 16 is at least 1 kilometer west of hole 13 intercept. So I think that this is the minimum extension to the west, but if we use the influence of holes, because the holes are 300 meters apart, that is the reason why we use the scale of 1.2 kilometers, that at least over this 1.2 kilometers is the mantle mineralization is, we can interpret that is quite continuous. And the continuity is not just because we have different intercepts, copper intercepts, but we base the continuity basically in the controls of the mineralization. That's the reason why this section shows the interpretation of the geological units, the upper volcanics, the sediments, the tuff that we can follow in all holes, and that we use finally for interpreting the fault blocks movement. So for all these reasons, we think that this section and the results of hole 16 are good results and prove the extension of the mineralization toward the west, and as the section shows, is still open to the west.
Thanks. And the last question on the geological side, do you see any evidence of hydrocarbons or bitumen in the drilling?
Well, yes. Yeah. We do not exactly see bitumen in the samples, but probably will be something there if we're looking for more detail. But rocks are, the shales are absolutely carbon-rich shales, and there is, I think that there is more than one evidence of the existence of organic fluids in these rocks. The rocks looks very carbonaceous, especially the black shales.
Thanks, Sergio. And then a couple of more strategic matters, which I'll take. Is there an opportunity to increase the company's claims in the area, since the mineralization looks like it extends beyond the existing claims? The answer is yes. We're constantly looking at new opportunities. Most of the land is held by several larger players, but there are smaller players that we are in contact with, and we're looking at those opportunities as they come forward. I don't think we're going to rush. We have a fairly large land package already, but there are certainly some claims that we would very much like to get our hands on. Would this expanded discovery in any way delay the project that's now being worked on or delay the work of any of the permits? The answer is no. It won't change our strategy with the mod. We still intend to push forward with that, and the permitting timeline, those two projects are separate, and the permit is obviously well advanced for the mod. So our intention is to carry on moving the mod forward. The next most mature project is the Pampa Medina oxides and the Madrugador oxides, which we see an opportunity to increase our copper cathode production through. And then the least mature and potentially the most exciting is the new sulfide discovery, which Sergio has made at depth, which will obviously take a lot more time and drilling from now to get it to a level of maturity where we can understand what's actually happening. One question, last question, where does the company go from here? Is Greenstone looking at a liquidity event? Are there any plans to drill for sulfides below the mod? Our plans haven't changed as a company. We continue to move forward with the mod and explore in parallel. We have a very large land package, which we haven't been able to explore because we haven't had the funds available, which we do now. So we're going to continue with our strategy of parallel development and exploration. Greenstone is a private equity fund that will require a liquidity event at some point, and we're certainly getting close to the end of their fund life, so we wouldn't expect them to be around for the next decade, put it that way, but no firm plans for Greenstone to exit at this point. And yes, we would love to drill the sulfides. Again, it's a function of money, so we are working on our budgets now. That the actual pads are already prepared for Sergio to drill the sulfides below the mod and to test that theory, and we're hopeful that we'll do that at some point during the course of this year, financing allowed. With that, I think we'll call it an end to the day and say thank you very much again to Sergio for giving up his time and putting together a fantastic presentation, and we look forward to the next phase of drill results.
Thanks very much.
That's great. Well, Sergio, Hayden, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback, and all the management team can better understand your views and expectations. On behalf of the management team of MARIMACA Copper, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.